After 10 days of New Orleans Saints training camp practices, it's clear that Spencer Rattler leads the quarterback competition. And that ain't just opinion, that's numbers. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, wide receiver depth is really concerning, but it's not the only position that brings you some cause for pause behind the starters. We'll also take a look at the defensive side where at safety, cornerback, edge rusher, and even linebacker, there could be some shakeups on that side of the ball. We'll kick everything off with the position battle that everyone wants to know everything about, quarterback. And I'll tell you why Spencer Rattler is very clearly QB1 right now. We got all that coming for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Spencer Rattler is QB1. That's it. Said it. It's done. No, I'm not kidding. It's not done. But he is absolutely leading this quarterback battle, and there's very little doubt about it. In order to back that up, I want to take a look at three things because I don't want to focus on thoughts, feelings, opinions. I want to give you the numbers, and then you can decide for yourself what you think as well. But we're going to look at passing stats. We'll look at the distribution of reps, first team, second team, third team, and we'll look at the ever important scrimmage in terms of how often each player was with, each quarterback was either with the first team offense or going up against the first team defense. I think each of these metrics gives you an idea of individual performance and how the team views each quarterback, which might be the most important piece. Because how a quarterback performs individually in practice can be taken with a lot of context. Sometimes a player throws an interception that's not actually held against them. Sometimes a quarterback ends up scrambling and ends up going for a sack taking a sack that was the right situation under which to take a sack, depending upon what the scenario was. All these other things. So sometimes the things that can just come off as negative at face value can actually be seen as positives within the facility. So I want to take a look at these things that give us a little bit of a glimpse of what things look like perhaps from inside the facility. Speaking of inside the facility, head coach Kellen Moore did a recent interview, and he said that the team was close to making a decision around who their quarterback will be. It seems like that Los Angeles Chargers date and game is a big, really, really, really important one. Now, we've known that because over and over again, Kellen Moore has referenced that Los Angeles Chargers game. We'll do this before, that before, the Chargers game, the Chargers game, the Chargers game. Like everything kind of was anchored around that. And so the Saints sound like they're going to be pretty close to making a decision. Now, whether that decision will be made public or whether that decision is just made in-house, at least it sounds like there will be a designation at that point. So we'll see how things continue to move forward. But now that the Saints are now we've seen 10 different practices. That includes one walkthrough and 9 practices in 10 training camp days. I thought it would be good to kind of look back at some of the numbers that we have. So let's take a look at the passing stats. That gives us a look at completions, attempts, completion percentage, and then touchdowns, interceptions, all that good stuff. And we'll start off with Spencer Rattler because he leads in every category for better or for worse. 83 completions on 114 passing attempts. That's the most passing attempts. That's the most completions. He also has the highest completion percentage at 72.8%. Now, I'll remind you that this is a guy that over the course of his 6 starts and 7 game appearances last year, completed only 57% of his passes. And so coming in here and performing at a 72.8% clip means a couple of different things. First of all, doing so against a defense that has impressed so far is in and of itself impressive. It also shows a willingness to take what the defense gives. That's what we saw a lot during the scrimmage. Not a lot of big plays downfield and stuff like that. Every now and then he had a couple of explosives, hit a couple of 10+ yard passes, things like that. He's also made some big plays with his legs as well, which cannot be discounted when Kellen Moore is your head coach and your play caller. But the ability to be able to just simply take what a defense is giving you, making the right play instead of the big play, that's something that really shows to the growth of a Spencer Rattler going from 2024 to 2025. It also means that he's probably playing against a much better offensive line than he was playing behind, or playing behind a much better offensive line than he was playing behind last year. He also has 8 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Threw an interception against the during the scrimmage, Kool-Aid McKinstry, that I think there's some context in that they probably won't really focus on that one too terribly much. You probably would like to see some more effort from the wide receiver in that one. Tyler Shough, 67 of 108 with a 62% completion percentage, 5 passing touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. To his credit, one of his interceptions came off of a tip drill where he placed the pass. It got tipped up, it got bounced up in the air when a couple of defenders tried to converge on it and then ended up getting intercepted. I think that over the course of the past few days, we have seen Tyler Shough get much more comfortable and be much more aggressive. I think that will eventually work to his favor, but I don't know if that's going to work to his favor in time for week 1. Jake Haener, 78 of 112, very close to Spencer Rattler. In fact, 69.6% completion percentage, also very good at taking what the defense gives him. He is tied with Tyler Shough for me with 5 touchdowns. He also has 1 interception that he's thrown. Some might say that he's got 6 touchdowns because there was a play to Chris Olave down the right sideline that was whistled and signaled as a touchdown by the officials. But it was so very clear to me that Alontae Taylor and Julian Blackmon, who pulled up on the play, would have just nudged him out of bounds before he got to the end zone. But you might even want to say 6 touchdowns. If you're really, really pulling for Haener there, I would give that to you. So there you go. So that's the way that shakes out to me. 10 total touchdowns for Spencer Rattler, utilizing his legs, being comfortable in that area. And then the 8 touchdowns with the 4 interceptions, 8 touchdowns with the 3 interceptions, however it is that you want to look at it. Solid in terms of what you would be looking for from any of these young quarterbacks. All right, let's take a look at first team distribution so far. This is the amount of times that one of these quarterbacks has been first in the rotation. So sometimes that you still take some snaps with other teams, but first in the rotation. For the first team, Spencer Rattler, 4 practices he's been first in the rotation. Tyler Shough, 3. Jake Haener, 2. Spencer Rattler also had additional first rotation reps in walkthroughs during a practice earlier this week as well, or earlier last week as well. Second team, Spencer Rattler, also tied for the lead here with 4, along with Tyler Shough at 4. Jake Haener, only 1 with the second team, though in that walkthrough, he also saw second team reps. And then finally, third team, Jake Haener, 6 practices spent third in the rotation. Tyler Shough second with 2. And then Spencer Rattler last with only 1 practice that he has spent so far as the third quarterback in the rotation. And that includes a time to where technically in the rotation where they went Rattler, Shough, Haener, Rattler, Shough, Haener, Rattler, walk through Shough, Haener, or whatever it was, or Shough. And then it was technically Haener's turn going into day 10 to be the top quarterback in the rotation, but the Saints willingly deviated from that and had Spencer Rattler be first in the rotation. That is an example of what it is that this organization sees and the way that they look at Spencer Rattler. To follow that up, the number of times that one of these quarterbacks took first team reps with the offense during the scrimmage and saw first team reps against the defense in the scrimmage are telling. Spencer Rattler, 5 reps with the or 5 drives rather with the first team offense. Tyler Shough, 2. Jake Haener, 0. Spencer Rattler, 6 drives against the first team defense. Tyler Shough, 0. Jake Haener, 1. That to me is very, very telling as well. That scrimmage practice being the most important practice that we've seen so far. 2-minute drill practices, 2-minute drill walkthroughs, end of half, beginning or end of game. We have always seen Spencer Rattler near the top of the rotation there in those scenarios. To me, this shows you that performance-wise on an individual basis, but also the way that the organization is treating and looking, and this coaching staff is treating and looking at this quarterback battle. To me, it is very clear, looking at all of this, that Spencer Rattler is number 1 and leading this quarterback battle for right now. Now we'll have to work hard to maintain that. Tyler Shough has begun to get a little bit more comfortable. Can he close the gap? We'll see over the course of training camp and the rest of the preseason here. But as of right now, 10 days in the training camp, 10 practices in the training camp, Spencer Rattler to me has a very comfortable lead going into week 1. Coming up next, Over on the defensive side, we could see some very interesting shakeups at some really important positions. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. If you're like me, you love playing golf, but you might be bad at it. That's certainly really if you're like me. I know I certainly am, but I love going out there. 9 holes in, I'm doing terribly. I need a little bit of a boost to get me to 18. That's where 5 Hour Energy comes in. And especially with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion, the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor that you love from your favorite golf drink without the alcohol in a quick, energizing shot to help you get all 18 holes in or more if you want to go beyond that. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's a number 5hourenergy.com, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf and receive 20% off of your order. This offer is valid only through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good for subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with some friends or you're trying to turn 18 holes into 16, get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order your transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. All right, family. The New Orleans Saints defense could see some interesting shakeups going into 2025 because of how well some of the young talent is performing. Let's break it all down as we continue on revisiting over the course of our last 10 days here at New Orleans Saints training camp. I want to start off first with the linebacker room in particular. The linebackers for me are very interesting because you have Demario Davis, you have Pete Werner. Both of those guys have kind of been there, and there's been a lot of conversation around whether or not rookie linebacker Danny Stutsman, who's been really impressive here throughout camp, could potentially leap Pete Werner for his role. But here's where things get interesting. So far, Danny Stutsman says that he has really kind of just been playing one position, and that is Mac, which is the position that Demario Davis plays in this defense. So leaping Pete Werner would be pretty challenging because he's not playing Pete Werner's position. And so the shakeup there that becomes super interesting is where Nephi Sewell sits in. This is a guy that doesn't get talked about a lot, but is somebody that a lot of us in the media have been pretty high on. We see the work ethic, we see the way that he tackles, the way that he pursues, the effort that he plays with, all those other things. He's a smaller guy when it comes to the linebacker position, but he's also walked away with a pair of interceptions already here throughout training camp. And so when it comes down to what that linebacker room looks like, Demario Davis, Pete Werner, Danny Stutsman, and Nephi Sewell kind of fit right in terms of where they could end up being impactful should they need to step into any action. It'll be interesting, though, to see if Danny Stutsman ever, at any point, sees reps in place of Pete Werner, whether because of injury or simply because of rotation, or maybe the Saints just want to get a look at him next to Demario Davis. That might end up giving him an opportunity to show, hey, I can do more than just this one position. So that's what I mean by some shakeups could be on the way in that linebacker room, because Danny Stutsman has been all over the place. He's making tackles, he's breaking up passes, he's getting involved in the coverage game, the run game. He's getting involved as a pass rusher as well. This guy is all over the field because his motor is so high and his play style is so agile and aggressive. And so seeing sort of him be able to do that in a really controlled way to where he's not overdoing anything or he's not putting himself out of plays is really, really impressive so far. And so I'm super interested to see how much a guy like Danny Stutsman will end up maybe seeing some opportunities come his way throughout his rookie season. Over on the cornerback side, I think it's a rookie that stands out there as well. It's Quincy Riley. Quincy Riley's got 2 interceptions here throughout training camp, much like Nephi Sewell. Actually could have had 3, skied up and snagged an interception while guarding Chris Olave during the scrimmage, but came down with 1 foot out of bounds. Just burly. And so he could have had his 3rd interception, and it would have been another interception in the end zone. This guy is just doing a very good job making plays when it matters the most. And kind of we've seen that around this defense so far. They've stood up strong in the red zone situations that the team has worked. They've gotten a lot of takeaways in the end zone as well. And so finding those moments where you can go in there and be an impact player and not just get an interception, but also immediately take points off the board, that's something that's going to be really, really hard to ignore. Now, to the sort of credit of the veteran guys that are up ahead of him, obviously Kool-Aid McKinstry going into his 2nd year, we'll call him a young veteran. He has been somebody that has been outstanding all throughout camp. But Isaac Yiadom comes in and is somebody that has experience in this defense, that's worked with Brandon Staley both in Denver as well as last year with the San Francisco 49ers, and then now rejoins him here. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on the fact that Yadam brings really effective NFL experience. I think that there's value there, especially when you lose a guy like Tyrann Mathieu in the process, where that veteran experience around the position group, around the secondary becomes really important. But if there's ever any kind of shakiness in the foundation there, Quincy Riley could quickly come in and make some plays. And I will say, too, Rico Payton has continued to get better and better as well. I mean, he had a really great and strong scrimmage. Pass breakup. He had one opportunity at an interception, but it was on a 4th and something. And so he wisely decided to knock the ball down instead of stealing the interception, which he very well could have. But he opted to knock it down for the sake of better field position, which is what the game situation in practice was. So it just kind of goes to show you like the high football IQ and the playmaking ability that we already kind of know is there. So the good news is that the Saints' depth at corner, it's young, but could be something that this Saints team can lean on if it has to. When you think about Alontae Taylor, who can move around, Khalid McKinstry and Ike Adam over on the outside, when you have players like Rico Payton and you have a young star player potential in Quincy Riley, who is a takeaway machine and a ball production guy, it's a pretty comfortable space to be in for New Orleans. The next thing that I wanted to take a look at is going to be that safety position. Julian Blackmon has come in and absolutely commanded that starting safety role the minute he got there. In fact, it was a joke that Jonas Sanker made during his media availability earlier in the week, where he and Julian Blackmon were at the podium and Justin Reid came and joined us in the media scrum, and Justin Reid and Julian Blackmon asked him kind of the first 2 minutes of questions and everything. And one of the things that he was asked was, what do you make of Julian Blackmon? And it was meant to be kind of, joking, because obviously Julian Blackmon's sitting right next to him. And Jonas Sanker says, I hate the fact that you just showed up here and kind of took everything over. But when you've got 5 years of experience like Julian Blackmon does, 10 career interceptions, 7 over the course of the last 2 years. Again, we try to focus on the numbers here and the way that impacts things. You have the elite production of a playmaking safety, and you have a guy next to you like Justin Reid, who can put you in a lot of really good positions. Yeah, you probably want that guy that can take the football away and comes in with NFL experience. But Jonas Sanker has just gotten better and better and better here throughout camp. And much like Danny Stutsman is just all over the field and consistently making plays, definitely a player to watch as kind of things roll on. And don't forget, Jordan Howden had a pass breakup that could have potentially been an interception during scrimmage, but then also had an interception just the day before as well during outdoor drills. So, that safety room, again, maybe showing a little bit of depth, though young, showing a little bit of depth and potential there. I wanted to wrap up with edge rusher, because I kind of spoke about it during the live show, but I wanted to come back to it in case you didn't see the live show. But Jasheen Davis and Chris Rumph have been really solid, especially late here in practice. Really, Chris Rumph, I got to go all the way back, right? Chris Rumph has been pretty consistent all throughout. We talked about him earlier having to try to avoid the Peyton Turner result, which is the flash guy, and become the consistent guy. I'm pretty comfortable saying that he's become a consistent guy now. Now, how much of that is about what the edge rushers are doing versus what the offensive line is not, we won't know until they actually get out there and start playing against people that aren't wearing their same uniforms as them. But both of those players, I feel, have leapt Isaiah Foskey at this point. And so if you're looking at keeping 5 edge rushers, for me, those 5 guys are pretty simple. It's Chase Young, it's Carl Granderson, it's Cam Jordan, it's Chris Rumph, and it's Jasheen Davis. Like, those have been the standouts to me from the edge rusher spot, which is different than defensive end, where you see guys like Jonah Williams, Brian Brzee, Nathan Shepard to an extent. Like, that's a different position now. But of the edge rushers, those are the 5 guys that I keep, and that kind of leaves Isaiah Foskey on the outside looking in, which is really unfortunate, because an incredibly talented player during his collegiate days, a really hard worker, but for whatever reason, still, even with this new Brandon Staley defensive system, it's not necessarily coming together for him just yet. That helps and benefits guys like Jasheen Davis and Chris Rumph, who are performing and showing up. Coming up next, the New Orleans Saints wide receiver room is one of the places where I think the Saints should have the biggest concern when it comes to depth. Let's get to that next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the absolute best place to go to get your tickets, especially if you're like me and you're spontaneous and you like to get your tickets at the last minute. Sometimes Game Time users will save up to 60% by buying their last-minute tickets on the Game Time app, which allows you to be able to see your view from the seats before you even buy the tickets. You can also check out their awesome zone deals where they'll pick the seats for you in a section that you want. You could always toggle on all-in pricing as well so that you don't have any of those surprise fees that could take you by surprise by the time that you get to checkout. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets by downloading the Game Time app today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints wide receiver room is really, really talented at the top, but the depth is becoming concerning. We got that here for you on today's show. Don't forget to come back for tonight's squad show, 9 p.m. Central Time, live. Myself, John Hendricks, Dylan Sanders, Lance Moore, all here to break down everything we've seen at camp so far. And of course, we continue with you here 5 days a week over on Locked On Saints, and then some. You know we ain't stopping. I will be traveling to California. We'll continue our coverage of training camp while we're out there as well. All right, so I am getting a little bit concerned about the Saints wide receiver room when it comes to the depth. I was already a little bit concerned because they don't have like the big body possession wide receiver, all those things. But the depth at wide receiver is something that is kind of causing a little bit of worry. Look, at the top of the position group, guys like Rashid, Shaheed, Chris Olave, and Mason Tipton have continued to stand out. Mason Tipton is showing you that last year wasn't a fluke, and that's really, really good to see. Brandon Cooks has not had really a lot of standout moments, but the veteran leadership that he provides, I think, is really important, and he'll probably end up being a guy. He's probably a guy like Demario Davis and Cam Jordan that are kind of being paced into camp a little bit, not necessarily being overloaded. You know what these guys can do. They know how they fit. There's no need to overwork them. So I think those guys just might be on different timelines. So I expect that Brandon Cooks, even though he hasn't been very eye-catching throughout training camp, that once it gets into the regular season and he's kind of more full go, quote unquote, that he'll end up kind of showing up a little bit more during that time. But the guys behind them, not really a lot of folks have been standing out. I mean, Dante Pettis has had some really nice moments here and there. Kevin Austin Jr. hasn't had a strong camp. Bub Means has had a few catches. His first catch was a touchdown in red zone drills. I believe it was from Jake Haener. It was 7-on-7s. And then he had a nice couple of catches during scrimmage. But he hasn't been somebody that's been consistently standing out a ton. And then the young undrafted guys, Moochie Dixon and Chris Tyree, neither of them have really kind of caught eyes either. People aren't really discussing them. We're not seeing a lot from them. Cedric Wilson Jr. fits in to what it is that Kellen Moore wants to get done. So I think that he's going to kind of make the roster, and he would kind of be a default guy to make the roster. But I'm pretty confident in saying that if the Saints were to sign a free agent wideout like a Keenan Allen, who just went for a visit with his former team, the Los Angeles Chargers, will probably have signed with the Chargers by the time that this episode releases, so that I look like an idiot. And the Saints have shown some interest in, according to Jeff Duncan over at NOLA.com. Then, like, if they did that, this guy would immediately leap and he's on the roster. You know what I mean? And I don't think that that's a shocker, but I think that it's not necessarily about the contract that he would be given or the fact that he would be signed. It's that, like, the Saints need no other options. Now, if you look at 2025 as kind of a transition year, then I think you're setting up yourself with a good foundation in terms of what the top of your wide receiver room looks like as something that you can then add to next offseason. But I think if you're trying to kind of have the ambitious look at 2025 here as a team and as a club, then I think the Saints wide receiver room could certainly use some help, or somebody in there, a Bub Means who looked really good during minicamp at OTAs, like he steps up, then you start to look at that room a little bit differently and maybe with a little bit more kind of optimism behind the starters. I think the starters are good, but the depth very concerning so far. Speaking of that, center. Behind Erik McCoy, the Saints have not had much success at center. Low snaps, errant snaps, high snaps, balls rolled on the ground, basically, things like that. Like, that is a position group that has not panned out well for New Orleans so far. Will Clapp also left the scrimmage day on Sunday with an injury. We'll see what the update is there when we get back on Tuesday, if we don't learn anything before then today. But behind Erik McCoy, the guys that have been playing center for New Orleans, not a lot of optimism to be had there. And again, we saw how much that ended up really kind of kneecapping this New Orleans Saints team as a whole, but certainly the offense when Erik McCoy was out after that, during really that week 3 game against the Philadelphia Eagles last year. Erik McCoy is the guy that right now you can't lose him. If you lose him, you're in a lot of trouble, deep doo doo, if you will. And so I think that that's another position where I certainly see the Saints really, really needing some help when it comes to depth. And I don't know if you're going to find it anywhere. And so really, you got to just hope that one of these guys, you got to hope that Will Clapp stays healthy. You got to hope that one of these other guys, and even Will Clapp improves performance as well. Like, you got to hope that somebody else that's not Erik McCoy can snap a football. And right now it's becoming really, really concerning that if Erik McCoy is not on the field, there's no guarantee you're going to get clean snaps at this point. And so that to me is really, really, I mean, I keep saying it, I've said it over and over again, but it's really concerning. But at least the Saints are finally to a place where they're trying to have a backup center. They never used to do this. They would always move players around and everything like that. So thankfully, Kellen Moore at least wants a backup center. A couple of injury updates for you, super quick. JT Gray was the only non-PUP player that we didn't see at the scrimmage days practice. I'm sure there's going to be some bumps and bruises from the scrimmage, especially when they went live towards the end of the day and everything like that. But outside of that, I wouldn't be too concerned just yet until we hear anything new. But Saints remotely, or through the most part here, keeping it clean so far throughout training camp. All right, we'll see you tonight on the Squad Show, tomorrow with a fresh episode for you, and over at 10 a.m. over on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network as well. We appreciate you very much, as always. Make this a party day part of your routine for saying yes to me and the show. If you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Know what our family's doing, know how you living. Let me know how you're momming them. I trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.